Hi Rockwell, my name is Matthias Johnson. I am a happy resident of 914 Kennebec. It's a lovely house. I'm on the back porch, which I greatly enjoy, and it has a beautiful view of some trees, and it's just a wonderful place to live. Fresh air, very happy here, glad to be a tenant at this place, and it's very well maintained as well, and I very much appreciate and respect that and want to contribute to its well maintenance. And so I wanted to make a video talking a little bit about maintaining the yard, because there is a conventional approach to maintaining a yard that's, the recommended approach by, most people in order to have a good looking lawn and, neat looking shrubs and everything else. But it's a little bit complicated. What is a lawn? Lawn is a uniform green carpet of soft grass that can be well controlled to make a golf course, for example, and make just a very even, very stunning, beautiful green surface. But as you can see, it's very difficult and expensive to make everything this even. So even a few feet away from the holes, there's a transition, and right here is a little bit less carefully controlled, because it takes a lot of area, a lot of resources to cover all this area, and a little farther out, a little bit less still. And then over here, there's a dead patch, but that's just because of a shed. And you look across, and there's some degree of non-uniform appearance on the golf course. But the most expensive maintenance is reserved for right near the holes, where people want to be able to putt, because it's a delicate sport. Now, golf courses require a lot of inputs. For example, water and fertilizer, and maybe herbicide for killing weeds, also seeds and delicate mowing, and also maintenance for erosion, so tree planting and tree chopping and tree pruning. They can be very difficult to manage because the lawn doesn't seem to want to exist here. That word I've used very loosely, but when given the chance, it will rapidly veer away from being a lawn. Now, if you look near the edges of the golf course, where it's less well maintained because fewer golfers reach this area, so they don't put as much effort in to make sure it's perfect. You see the ground is like sandy, dry. It's almost like desert, very nearly. Other areas are even worse. This is dry, hard. It's lifeless. It blows away in the wind. This is topsoil erosion. So certainly golf didn't come from a place where it is this difficult to create and maintain a golf course. Golf comes from Scotland and spread from the United Kingdom into the British Empire, which the United States is a former settler colony of, and that's how golf became a popular sport here. But it's because it started in the rolling hills of England and Scotland. This is what they look like. As you can tell, they are very picturesque and stunning, and would be wonderful places to play golf in their natural state. And it's important to recognize that not only was golf brought to the British Empire, also the idea of a lawn around the house was brought as a way to evoke the homeland. Slightly more disturbingly, some articles I've read talk about the fact that because lawns are basically a crop that needs to be watered and maintained, and it's basically a useless crop that doesn't feed anyone or any animal, they were oftentimes a status symbol on slave plantations, where the owners of the plantations would show off how much land they could afford to waste and how much labor they could afford to waste to maintain it, as a symbol of wealth. Now, I don't believe people today have lawns for that reason, but that is certainly the history of it. So one of my occupations, as you see, I'm near a cornfield in Braddock. One of my occupations is I help people build forest gardens. So this is a, like agriculture-like cornfield, but around it, I'll show you, I've helped some people with their space, and we've planted some blueberries, 4 different blueberry bushes, some hazelnuts, couple different varieties. We've also planted over here, this is a pawpaw tree. This is another hazelnut bush. This is a serviceberry. It's a very beautiful red bush. And by the way, also the blueberries, the hazelnuts, and the serviceberries are all only 12 feet tall, 12, maybe 15 at their most mature. And they're from Pennsylvania. They're native plants to here. And they've been eaten here for thousands of years. The pawpaw, this is a persimmon tree. And over there we put a black cherry tree. And in that overgrown area, we're gonna clear it out and put some other types of fruit trees as well, maybe plums. Now the pawpaw is an astounding fruit. It's basically a tropical fruit that grows in cold weather. It's basically a cold weather mango that tastes somewhere between a mango, a guava, pineapple, and vanilla ice cream. And not only has it been eaten and cultivated in western Pennsylvania for thousands of years, it's also the only tree that supports the zebra swallowtail butterfly's life. It lays its eggs on the tree, it eats the fruit and flowers and sap from the tree, and it can only live basically near the trees or migrate near the trees because it sleeps in the trees. Actually a lot where a house burned down, and eventually we wanted to have it filled, myself and the client I'm working with, want to have it filled with about 30 kinds of food. Now this is, of course, larger than a backyard or a front yard where the house isn't burned down. But clearly it shows the possibilities of what's possible in an urban landscape. I mean, each of these will be tall fruit trees with more fruit than you can possibly harvest. And the whole block will get to enjoy wonderful plums and peaches. And yeah, we planted some peach trees over there. And we're gonna plant apple trees and other kinds of trees you may not have heard of, like sumac. So it's gonna be a very beautiful space that's gonna be basically a forest garden. So it's gonna have some kinds of vegetables growing in some of the sunnier areas, maybe over here, and it'll have fruit trees growing in the creating the shadier areas, and then all kinds of woodland flowers underneath the fruit trees. Alternatives to lawns are plentiful and beautiful. This is an example of a beautiful lawn filled with only a few species, but even with just 5 or 6 species, you get bright colors, and if you can see where there's a bumblebee, and I'm sure there's sometimes hummingbirds. Yeah, on a random Braddock side street, look what you find. A gorgeous, stunning apple tree filled with literally hundreds and hundreds of apples. Yeah, some of them fall on the ground. Some of them get eaten. Some of them, I'm sure someone turns them into cider. And it's free once it's planted. And look how beautiful it is to just stand under the shade here on a hot summer day, or walking by past a row of these would be very nice. Everybody wins. Because a lawn has to be watered and sometimes fertilized and otherwise maintained in complicated ways, it's basically a crop. But a crop that doesn't feed any people, it doesn't feed any animals really, almost none will eat this type of grass, and it doesn't provide any shade, and it doesn't capture any carbon, and it allows for topsoil to erode and degrade, blowing it away and making our futures worse. United Nations report recently said that we may only have 60 seasons of topsoil left with current land management practices. So it's a different time of day now, it's dawn, but let's talk a little bit about the front yard and the backyard of Kennebec Street. So basically we keep being told that the front yard needs to be mowed as well as the backyard, and I understand how that may be the case for 912 side, but for 914 side, it has been mowed almost every time it's been requested, and because of that, it's basically dead. Lawn care is something that almost everyone who does hates, and it's a lot of work, and if you don't water it, if you don't fertilize it, both of which are resource intensive, and the fertilizer kills the oceans, etc., etc. It basically it dies very easily, especially in the summer. And so I planted some wildflower seeds from the Audubon Society. It's a conservation group that spreads native wildflowers and seeds. These were a gift from them. There's these 4: Lobelia, Helen's flower, Boneset, and also pink milkweed. And if you really hate them, you're welcome to chop them down, or you make me chop them down. But in the meantime, I wanted something to grow here instead of nothing because it keeps dying. A similar thing could be done for this side because I don't think the 912 neighbors like mowing the lawn either. I mean, who does? It's annoying, it's a lot of work, it's difficult, and doesn't even produce anything that you can eat or anything. In terms of this area where the poison ivy has been, that was herbicided, it hasn't fully gone away, so I've chopped some of it with a machete, but I also put thornless blackberry seeds. Yes, there's blackberry bushes, the Allegheny blackberry that has no thorns, and I planted them in here, and it should outcompete the poison ivy. Again, because it's thornless, if you really hate it, and you don't see it as part of the land management practices you want here, you're welcome to rip it out, or make me rip it out. But I thought it would be better to have blackberries than poison ivy. The side strip on the side of the house by 914 has actually been recently mowed. It's not very long. And in terms of these taller plants, they have a name as well. They're called American burnweed. And these I actually find incredibly useful. As you can see, I ripped some of the leaves off. They're actually a really nice poison ivy treatment. I regularly have bad rashes from poison ivy from the gardening I do at this location and other locations whenever I'm removing it. This area over on the side is where I would like to put the hazelnut bushes that would be very abundant, and they would not lean on the house. They're only about 12 feet tall at full maturity, and they produce hundreds of pounds of nuts. Except it's like kind of been herbicided a while back to deal with some of the poison ivy, and because of that there's a giant like dead patch along this area, and so I planted potatoes. This is a giant potato plant. It's a little hard to see in the video, but it's been spreading and it's currently flowering, and it's very beautiful. And I'm not going to eat those potatoes because of the Roundup, but they actually help restore the soil. So hopefully by springtime this area will be good to plant the hazelnut bushes. And again, they're easy to remove if you really want to, but I don't really see why you would, because people will be happy to live in a place that has free food. Like, who doesn't want free food? As I'm sure you can imagine, a forest garden full of free food will make the tenants very happy. And happy tenants are really good for preserving your property value, because they really will care about the place, and or at least they'll be more likely to, because they have more reasons to, and they'll want to stay, and so they'll be more likely to upkeep it. And the other benefits for you is, I think it would increase the property value. I'm not a home appraiser, but seeing mature fruit trees in the back would make any buyer more excited about the place. So your investment would grow as the trees grow. And I think in general, there's nobody who loses, especially if the trees are planted considerately so that they won't mess with the house. And there's no power lines up above. And if they're well managed in their first years so they grow straight and tall, I really think everybody wins. So I hope you will consider allowing me to continue turning this place into a forest garden. It requires restoring the soil first, which is why I am allowing non-poisonous plants to grow. There are some pokeweeds and knotweeds and other things that have been growing that I've been dealing with my machete to make sure that they don't spread. As you can see, I have a machete. Here's the poisonous plant. Boom, dead. Boom, dead. But in the meantime, there's tons of deer with big beautiful antlers that come through here, black squirrels, rabbits, blue jays, and all kinds of other wildlife that I get to see as a tenant here. And the other tenants have also told me how much they love the wildlife, and having a manicured lawn is not going to bring the wildlife here. The neighbors from next door also seem to have the same idea. However, their yard is mostly invasive plants. I've been removing many of the invasive plants so that there's more of the native ones that support wildlife even better here.